panelists for you. Many of them you have already seen. They have spoken to you. I have got a very extreme to the right, His Excellency Ali Wahid, Minister of Tourism, and just to my right, His Excellency Ibrahim Amir, Minister of Finance. Then His Excellency Ustaz Fayyaz Ismail, Minister of Economic Development. Then on my left, I have got His Excellency Ali Shah, Minister at the President Office, also co-chair of the Economic Committee. Then Her Excellency Ahmed Shauna, Secretary Policy, the President Office. So, panelists, thank you very much for giving your precious time. And at this moment, I would like to invite Excellency Ali Wahid, Minister of Tourism, to do his presentation. Thank you.
But very good morning to you all, and once again, welcome to the sunny side of life, the Maldives. I'll just give a brief synopsis of the tourism situation here in the Maldives. In 1972, when my mom was just 7 years old, it all began here in this island, Kurumba, Maldives. With just 10 beds, it all started 47 years ago. And today, as we speak, we have more than 146 resorts with 32,000 beds, liverboards up to 132 with more than 2,400 beds, 12 hotels with more than 1,800, and a booming guest house market where we have 553 guest houses with 9,000 beds and 219 travel agencies and 229 dive centers. A total of 47,000 beds here in the Maldives after 47 successful years. And if you look at the arrival growth since 1972, we have been improving. Just in 2004, during the tsunami, there's a little dip, but every year it has been going upwards. Last year, we finished with 1.4 million arrivals. This year, the President has targeted us with 1.5, but I'm pleased to say that with the current forecast, we are going to break the barrier and reach 1.6 million this year in the Maldives. And if you look at the GDP contribution, 23% is by tourism. By far, we are the industry that contribute highest number of revenue and also knowledge and social benefits to the country from any other, compared to any other workforce or any other sector. Tourism is the #1 sector in this country. Way forward, looking at the way we are foreseeing to develop our country, as you have seen yesterday from Planning Minister's presentation, we are developing a special plan where different zones will be developed as destinations. We are going to have 6 zones where President has pledged 35,000 beds within the next 5 years. And we are going to ensure and make sure that the previous government has neglected certain zones, namely the north and the south. We are going to bring beds according to the neglected areas so that we are going to distribute wealth and make sure that everybody in this country benefits from tourism, and that will enhance and develop the demographics of these regions. So looking at Zone 1, where Halif Hada Shaviani, namely the Bodotildumati zone, will get 8,000 beds. Nunra Bal Aviani, where we have luxury resorts already, will get 3,000. And looking at the central zone, which is the Mali central area, will get 2,000. And looking at the Lam central zone, southern zone, we will have 5,000 beds. For Huadu, 8,000, and for the southern region, 9,000. But let me tell you, for the central zone, if we go forward with the pledge, and if the current developments with the lagoons and islands come into play, tourism will flood in the central zone with more than 10,000 beds. So this is where we are going to address in the cabinet and make possible changes for a sustainable tourism. We are going to kickstart our 5th tourism master plan in July. And in my opinion, to succeed the plans and the values that we have championed during the campaign, private sector is key for our goals. Why we need a private sector partnership? In my opinion, for capital financing, technology transfer, managerial expertise, access to new markets, risk sharing, which frees up government resources. We have seen this for the last 47 years. The innovative development that you see in these beautiful islands is down to the private sector of this country. Of course, governments had policies, but in my opinion, from 1972 to 2019, the luxury destination that you see and you admire is because of the people and the private sector of this country. So for the future, the potential sectors that we could get mutually beneficial partnership could be renewable energy, transport, education, health, waste management, and infrastructure development. These are some key areas that we need support in order to deliver our pledges that we have campaigned during the election. So I don't want to take much time of yours. Tonight I will be hosting you to the sunny side of life. I believe after 2 days we should enjoy a bit. And there's a saying that even if you leave after these conferences, these islands, the islands will never leave you. I can assure that you will again come back. And I will now pass on to Soneva. Soneva is one of the successful stories for sustainable tourism work, the renewable energy work they have done. And the way they manage their waste is remarkable. And we want to commemorate and acknowledge the work of our private sector partners. Not only Soneva, there are many resorts in the country now who are opting to address the climate change issues. So, Soneva, please come and give a little brief about what you are doing, and after that we'll be taking the questions from the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that introduction, Honourable Minister. Good morning, Excellencies. My name is Hadi. I am the Community Engagement Manager at Soneva Fushi. And here with me, I have my colleague Gordon Jackson, who is the Waste Wealth Manager at Soneva Fushi. So as a private sector player, it is such a pleasure for us to be here. And before we start, on behalf of Soneva, we would like to thank the government for inviting us to this forum and to giving us an opportunity to speak and to share with you more about Namuna Ba. Namuna in Divehi is an adjective that refers to something that is exemplary, an ideal, or a model. Namuna Ba is a pilot initiative to create a model in Bayatol for eliminating single-use plastics from local communities. We're hoping that this model could then be replicated across the country to help achieve the government's aspirations of moving towards a plastic-free Maldives. So, speaking of ideals, I want to start with this image. This is the postcard image of the Maldives that you see everywhere. This is the ideal that we would like to see everywhere. Clean beaches, spotless shorelines, and a healthy ocean. But when you zero in onto this image, the reality that you see on the ground is different from the ideal that we would like to see. What we see on the ground instead are images like this: piles of mixed waste, clouds of black smoke from open burning, and food waste being dumped into the ocean. Now this, despite of regulations that discourage open burning and food waste dumping. This, despite of investments in waste management systems and centers. But this remains our current reality, not without reason. As we heard yesterday, solving the issues of waste on a geographically dispersed nation such as the Maldives is a huge challenge. It is a wicked, wicked problem that requires innovative solutions. And that is where we as private sector comes into the picture. As a company whose philosophy is based on innovation and sustainability, Soneva have been investing to design and implement waste management solutions to solve the issues of waste on our own resorts. We have a waste to wealth team that uses principles of circular economy to create value out of various waste streams. Our aim is zero waste, and currently we are at a point where we recycle, repurpose, upcycle, or reuse more than 90% of our solid waste. But this did not happen overnight. This is a result of years of trialing, testing, and learning. Governments most often do not have the luxury of time and resources to trial and test for solutions. The ability to innovate in this manner is one of the many reasons why private sector must and should engage with the government for development. While the realities of a local island are very different from that of a resort, a lot of the waste management innovations that we have implemented at Soneva are relevant, useful, and applicable in the context of the local islands as well. And this is why we partnered with the government for Namuna Ba. With your permission, we would like to spend some time to tell you a little bit more about our strategies, why this initiative is different from other initiatives, what we have been able to achieve so far, sort of timeline, as well as talking about next steps.
Thank you, Hadi. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate this opportunity to spend some time talking about the Namuna Ba project. I've been working in the Maldives for the last 7 years, primarily with the Waste to Wealth team at Soneva, looking at innovative solutions to the waste problems that we see. I'll just spend a couple of minutes talking about the strategy behind the Namuna Ba project. So what we've already shown is that in one island, we can recycle up to 90% of the solid waste that we have to deal with. But obviously the next step is to demonstrate that this can be extended to more islands. So we've partnered with Kihadu, Daravandu, and Malos, 3 of our neighboring islands, to develop a system where we help each other with the waste management challenges that we face. Namuna Ba starts with partnership. There are so many stakeholders, and waste affects every individual. We appreciate the support and encouragement that we've had from the government for this project. We are working with the local councils, the council presidents on each of these islands, working with the community, the school, the waste management centre, and with the environmental teams at our own resort to implement these ideas for Namuna Ba. And this is obviously a complex challenge, a complex problem, but we need a very clear strategy to know what we want to achieve here. So there are 3 key components to Namuna Ba. There's the reduce component. We want to minimize the amount of waste that we have to process. And then we're focusing on recycling, a zero waste approach that aims to recycle as much as possible. And finally, none of this will happen if the community is not engaged, and we want to inspire those around us. Just as our guests are inspired to come here and visit the islands, we want to inspire the communities to love the ocean, to love nature, and to want to preserve it. Of course, there are several areas where investment's required, so there will need to be investments in infrastructure. We can see that the systems in some areas are just not working. There needs to be investment there. And then, of course, the people who are going to be involved in transforming waste management on these islands need to be helped and assisted in that process. So investment is needed there. And we also need to consider the scale. So at the bottom of the tree here, we have the regions and the country as a whole providing services for waste management. And at the top of the tree, we have leaves and branches. Those are the households, the individuals, the islands where the waste begins, and the atolls in the middle that could join it all up. So we need to think about each of those scales and address the individual challenges at each level.
So in this section, we'll have a look at what we have been able to achieve so far in terms of reducing, recycling, and inspiring. Mind you, this is just a very brief snapshot of everything that we have done so far. So it all began in 2019, January, with the workshop, Plastic-Free Island Workshop, where we had stakeholders from different sectors come together to elaborate on this problem and to also develop the strategies of this initiative. In terms of reducing, we've been working very closely with the island of Malos to establish Soneva Water. Soneva Water is a social enterprise that aims to eliminate single-use water bottles by providing safe, portable drinking water to communities. We began operations in November last year, and today we continue to deliver filtered, mineralized drinking water to guest houses, cafes, and households in Maros. So far, we've been able to sell more than 400,000 liters of water and cover about 80% of all the households in Maros. In fact, we've been told that one of the shops that used to bring bottled water packaged in single-use plastics, they're no longer bringing it onto the island. I'd like to introduce you to Lujane. She's a young Maldivian diver and a mother of two, Ailey and Jules. She uses only reusable, washable nappies with both her kids. Now, I know what you're thinking, because when we think of reusable nappies, what we see is the image of an unhappy baby in a soiled cloth nappy and a distraught mother. But what we have learned through our engagement with Lujane is that in this day and age, that is not the case. There's so many options that one could choose from when it comes to reusable nappies, and that it is a reliable and convenient alternative to disposable nappies. Lujane and her husband, Hambe, are both big advocates of reusable nappies, and we have been engaging Lujane as a role model to introduce reusable nappies in these islands, because single-use nappies is also one of the biggest sources of single-use plastics on these islands. Now, in terms of recycling, we've been working very closely with the island communities to get rid of the piled-up waste on the island. This is through exercises such as community cleanups, waste segregation, and waste removal. All of this to give the islands a sense of fresh start. We've also been working very closely with the schools to implement Zero Waste Challenge, basically to inspire the next generations towards clean and segregated waste so that there could be more recycling. And finally, on the Inspire bit, we've been rolling out ocean stewardship programs to foster a love for the ocean. This is through activities such as teaching kids how to swim, how to snorkel, surf, things such as competitions and festivals. The idea is that we want kids to spend more time in the ocean and to love it, because you can't really protect something that you don't love.
So you've seen the Namuna Bar activities of the last 6 months, and what we've done, what we've started. I'd like to share now where we go next. Let's go back to that pile of waste that we have to think now, how are we going to deal with that enormous problem? Well, as we've already mentioned, reduction of waste is a good place to start. If we look at this waste pile, we'll find that an awful lot of that could be recycled if it was properly managed. And so we'll spend a lot of time focusing on how to improve recycling on an individual island and on islands together. And finally, there will always be a small amount that can't be recycled or reduced and will need to be incinerated. So the project, this initiative, will need to hook up with the incineration services that are available and being developed around the country. Now, the best way and the fastest way to reduce waste is through legislation, and we're really excited to see that the new government, as part of the legislative agenda, includes reduction and banning of certain single-use plastics and other waste streams. And we look forward to seeing that happen. That's going to make a major difference to the challenge. On the recycle level, we have worked at different levels of this problem. Starting in the island, we've spent time with the waste management teams, and we've gone round on their collection rounds, household to household, just to see what the waste looks like and what they're dealing with. And actually, in general, it's very unsegregated. It's all mixed up and a challenging thing to work with. So we're looking at how we can encourage clean and segregated waste collection. We're also working with a local architect to make small changes to the waste management centres so that they act more like eco-centres, like what we have at Soneva, with a major focus on recycling. At the other end of the scale, we have the regional services. We appreciate our partnership with Parley and Secure Bag, two organisations that take segregated waste, and when the facilities are not available in the country, we'll ship those to places where they can be recycled. We've also met with WAMCO, who are developing the incineration services, to look at how we integrate this initiative with them. But what we see is a gap in the middle. And I'd like to spend a couple of minutes talking about what could be done at an atoll level to really join the islands with the regional services. Now, first of all, we think it's very important that an island has the chance to clean out the waste that's been collected regularly. And for that, we would need a boat. Maybe it'd be a typical landing craft like the one on the left that could easily transport waste and machines between islands. Looking ahead, there are companies that are actually developing 100% solar boats specifically for transporting of waste. And these will be available in the near future and could be a real game changer for a country like the Maldives. At the atoll level, we think it's very important that there is a processing center. We call it BATS, the Bar Atoll Transfer Station, and that should be located somewhere in the middle of the atoll to minimize the transportation, where different waste streams would be aggregated to make them more efficient. And also, we'd like to see around a center like this, small, innovative businesses grow up around there to process these different waste streams and turn them into products that can be actually used. So Minister Aslam yesterday said that the Maldives has no minerals and has no hydrocarbons. And that's a real challenge for small business. So we believe that there really is an opportunity for businesses to be built around the reuse of waste as a resource. And that's something that we've demonstrated at Saneva Fushi, and we'd love to see as part of the transfer stations. Of course, waste management does require machines at certain levels. There will be machines that are needed at the island level. There'll be machines at the atoll level. And we also think there may be some which need to be transferred between islands. So they do spend a couple of days on each island providing a recycling service for particular waste streams. And finally, we come back to the Inspire component, because we see a lot of good work going on island by island through government initiatives, through UN agencies, local NGOs, and initiatives like Namuna Bar. And we'd love to see the best practice come together to be aggregated, and those things that work well be tested in action-based research, engaging the communities to develop solutions that really work. So that's Namuna Bar. That's the example that we hope with your partnership we can develop. And I'd like to just leave you with a short video to show what it looks like when all of this comes together. Thank you.
අලුගන්ගේ නම කියා සිමාලි අලුගන්ට මේ ග්‍රේඩ් 1 ගේ පේරන්ට් එක අලුගන්ගේ දරිපුල ග්‍රේඩ් 1 ගවලේ තීවේ අමෙකනේ මේ දරිපුල හදි හොඩි දැන් ග්‍රේඩ් 1 ගවලේ තීවේ මේ zero waste challenge එක බාරි වගේ මොලෙන් දැන් අනේ වරපොඩ එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් අස්තු කුඩේ විච්ච මේක දැන් අලුගන්ගේ දරිපුල වෙස් වර බොඩ මේකම අනේ ගයා වගේ නම වලම් විස් කොස්ගේ දැන් ගොඬු දොෂුනා තන්තන නම කොණි හොයාගේ
දැන් දසිවර බොඩු ඉච්ච දෙගේගවෙස් දල්ෆුଳି ඉච්චි බේණක වගතුන් එච්චි දොයලා ෆම සෙපරේට් කොල්ලා බෙහෙට්ටේ වකින් අලාලා පදෙන් අලගොන්ඩුගේ කුදින් ගෝයාගෙන් මගමතින් හිඟාර සම කරදස් කොළ පෙරුණස් කොක්කොම නගා දෙ දොම්බේෂේ කියාප
මිකමගේ සවබම් ಮಾಡ ವರ ಬೊಡತಿ ಬದಲ್ತಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಪುರತಮ ದಾರಿನ ಬದಲ ಅಳ್ಗಂಡ್ಬಂಗೆ ದಾರಿನ ಬ ಎಕ್ಕುಜ ಕಣೆಕ್ಕುಜ ಕೌಂಡ ಗೂಳು ವರ ವರ್ಗದ ವೇಗೆ ಹಿಂಗಜ್ಜೆ ದೆಂಗ್ ಅಣೆ ಬೆಲೆನ ವೇರಿನ ಕುದಿನ ಉಣ್ಣ ಗೂಳು ಮಾಮಿ ಹುರಿ ಹಾಕಮೆ ಬೆಸ್ನಿ ಮಿಕುದಿನ ಎಕ್ಕುಜ ಕಣೆಕ್ಕುಜ ಕಾ ಗುಳಿಗೆ ಮಸಕ್ಕೆ ಕುರು ಮಾಮಿ ಹುರಿ ಹಾಕಮೆ ವರ ಬಡ ಫಾಹಾಗೆ ಹಿಂಗಜ್ಜೆ
ಅದೌತಕ್ಕೆ ಕೀಕಬ ವರ ಬಡ ಮಗುಮತಿನ ಆಗೆ ತಂದನು ವರ ಬಡ ಕೂನಿ ಮದುವೆ ಫೌರಿ ಯಾರು ಕುನ್ನೆ ನೆತೆ ಬುನ್ಸ್ ದೋ ಕಣ್ಣು ಅಣಕಣ್ಣ ಅಳವಡ ಹೀವಡೆ ಅರ ಬಡ ಕುಣಿ ಮದುವೆ ಕುಣಿ ಎಳುಮ ಸುಟ್ಟಿ ಫೌರಿ
උදින් මිකම හෙල්න් තෙරවීම එම්මෙසාලි Udin kuda kudin mihar wara bodang nikama sa berkang upedik itu.
Thank you very much, Excellency Ali Wahid, Minister of Tourism, for a very good presentation on today's tourism scenario, and also a very nice presentation on Namuna Ba. Thank you, Sonoa Free. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, next component, I'm going to try to get an overview of the scenario for partnering with the private sector for development by asking questions on their viewpoints to the panelists. Then after that, of course, there is a very important component where you will be asking very important questions to clarify on the issues. So in the morning session on doing business, you heard about USP, unsolicited proposal policy, special economic zone, and Invest Maldives, all very important venues for partnering for development. I would like to start with an open question to Minister of Economic Development, Ustaz Fayyaz Ismail. Now, when a private company or an organization, somebody wants to come and invest in a country or partner with the government, they look at many aspects, and one of the aspects is the investment climate. Excellency Fayyaz, what is in your view the assessment of investment climate in Maldives context?
Thank you, Ambassador. Well, I think the first thing that any investor will look at in investing in a country is whether they have the confidence in the system to ensure that their investment is protected. What we are trying to do is create that investment climate where we are basically focusing on two main aspects. One is, of course, to ensure that investors have the confidence that the rule of law will be applied to them. Secondly, of course, to ensure that the ease of doing business is smooth, fast. The last couple of years, as I mentioned in the earlier session, was quite turbulent in the Maldives in terms of many social and economic activities. And there has been a lot of grievances from both local and foreign investors on how they were dealt with by the former government. I think we have, during the last 7 months, we have come a long way to instill in investors that we are different, that we are doing a lot of things to change that environment. And I think this forum itself shows that we are succeeding in that. I think going forwards, a very important milestone which will again put Maldives back in the map as a conducive country for investments is how our government is going to handle the lot of cases that are up for resolution. Previously, we have seen arbitrary decisions by the former government. We still don't know how those decisions were made. And the government is facing quite a lot of challenges in terms of compensation. It was one of the pledges of President Solih that we will fairly deal with those issues, and he has set up several committees to look into these matters to see a just resolution, also at the same time minimizing as much as possible the burden on the state. What we want to ensure is that going forwards, we will ensure that the rule of law applies, and modern thought processes will be instilled in formulating our laws and also our policies. Whilst we still have a long way to go in instilling in our colleagues and in the government and the civil service that government is not always right. It's necessarily not the case, but again, during the last couple of years, that has been the sort of the mantra. We are, from the economic ministry, we always try to get other government ministries and agencies to ensure that whenever they are making decisions, they make decisions based on they make calculated decisions, and that they make decisions after consulting with stakeholders, and ensure that whoever affected, the damages are minimized, and that accepted solution is reached. So we have the will to ensure that this climate is established in the Maldives. In the matter of ease of doing business, we have dropped to a very low rank in the ease of doing business index. And we are doing a lot of things to improve on that. Yesterday, Minister of Finance had signed with the Asian Development Bank on a project which is the National Single Window, which will bring in a lot of ease to businesses, especially with traders. And we have other such mechanisms in place. We recently passed from the cabinet to the authority to submit to Parliament to sign the WTO trade facilitation treaty. And we are also following up on the Kyoto customs related, I've forgotten the exact name of that. And also we are embarking on agenda to go towards e-government. All these things will, I believe, create a conducive environment for investors. And the most important, I believe, is the government's intentions, which will need to be accepted by the business community. And I think we are going towards that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. My next question is to the co-chair of Economic Council Minister at the President's Office, His Excellency Ali Sham. Now, are there any new initiatives that the government has rolled out, and can you please elaborate on them? What that are in the pipeline to encourage the private sector involvement?
Thank you, Ambassador. Well, the government is very much looking forward for private sector participation, and one of the avenues that we have opened is through unsolicited bids. And we have established a clear procedures which hold the government accountable, that private sector participation is through these avenues. The reason being that we believe that a private sector has the imagination, the technology, the management skills that sometimes that a government may not have. And we don't want to limit just only to the public sector. So through these avenues that private sector can participate and in delivering the pledges that the government has made. So that is one opportunity that we have. And there are few bids that have been coming, and the government is been going through it, and some of the projects that are very, very exciting. And just not only projects that are in a line to the pledges that we may have. Sometimes if the private sector have a brilliant idea, and if we think that this is really going to help the development of the Maldives, and we are open for that as well. And one way is through the unsolicited bid, through that mechanism that you can approach to the government. I will keep it very brief, and if we have any questions from the floor, we'll be more than happy to elaborate further. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Just now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we saw that very beautiful presentation from Sonevar. That's a very good example of private sector engagement. My next question is to Minister of Tourism, Excellency Ali Wahid. Minister, other than waste management, do you see other areas that private sector can be engaged in development?
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Yes, we believe there's a lot we could do more in order to fulfill our policies in the future. For example, wealth distribution, climate change, gender equality, even in the service industry. We believe this is the top destination in the world, and we want to ensure that this is the safest place, as well as a place where the benefits of tourism or all the private sector work is felt by the public as something that they own. We have challenges, issues that we need to address. In my opinion, the 5th Sustainable Tourism Master Plan will be key to succeed and put in line everything in order. I'll just add on to the business environment we have right now, in addition to what Economic Minister said. I think since November 17th, we have restored public confidence in the government. I'm representing one ministry where so much scrutiny was there in the previous government. So much scandals were there. And it's tough, it's hard. Sometimes it's like being the tourism minister of the Maldives is like surfing. You have to be very careful. You have to ensure you are on the right path. You have to make tough decisions. But I believe with the guidance and the leadership of our president, who has given absolute authority to the cabinet to deliver his pledges, we are doing well. I can say that our cabinet is a united cabinet where we have one target, one goal, and I believe the speed of delivery will progress in the coming months, because after, like our economic minister said, after turmoil, 5 years, where most forums would have been for human rights abuses, or you would hear sirens around the capital city. Right now, I think we have an environment where everything is possible and everybody is free to do business, free to roam around, free to express. So our target is within the 5 years to diversify our product. We want to make Maldives more than a honeymoon destination. We want to introduce MICE tourism, adventure tourism, sports tourism. And also we want to make sure the individual living in the north point, in Turakun, and the southern point in Adugan, to feel that whatever is shared in the demographics of the central zone is shared in the north and the south. So I think we have started with the right approach, and now it's up to all of us to deliver our pledges. Thank you.
If I may.
Yep, please.
Very often when Maldives is said, it's the white sandy beaches and the beautiful lagoon, you know. I would like to bring to the attention of the delegates, it's just not only limited to that, you know, there are other opportunities as well. One of the most successful companies here, for example, the telecommunication company, Maldives Water Storage Company, you know, and there are a lot of other opportunities as well. And I know we are often tagged with the white, beautiful sandy beaches and the lovely lagoons. But I just wanted to bring, with the due respect of the Minister of Tourism, there are other opportunities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, next question is to Finance Minister, Excellency Ibrahim Amir. Now, PPP is very common to, I think, the whole Maldives. All of us hear about PPP, and public-private partnerships are being increasingly explored in both developed and developing countries. What has Maldives' experience been on this front? And is this something that the government will be giving focus in the future?
Thank you very much. We came into this government with a very ambitious infrastructure developmental plan agenda. And I don't think without the private sector participation, active participation in delivering these pledges, we can actually do this within this next 5 years. So yes, we are seeking active private sector participation in delivering these projects. Also looking at the debt situation, debt sustainability, we are talking about the fiscal constraints we have within the state budget, and also the debt sustainability issues we have in this country. I think it is only wise that we also pursue the private sector partnership program to include, to participate private sector in our development. Minister Ali Shyam also highlighted the unsolicited proposals window. Our focus is that whatever is in the budget, state budget, will go through the national tendering process, so that it makes it more competitive. Even the state-owned enterprises and the private sector companies can also participate in this. And we have seen, unlike the previous years, we have seen that when we make it more open and more transparent tendering processes, the cost of these projects have reduced drastically. Projects, water and sanitation projects that were undertaken for 65 million rupiah previously, is now we have proposals come in for 30 million, 35 million. So half of the cost reduced through making it more competitive, more transparent. And also, I think private sector active participation is very important to reduce the corruption. By making private sector more engaged with public sector, it holds the public sector accountable, and it makes sure that we reduce cost and also increase efficiency. Also, Minister Ali Shyam just highlighted other examples where not only in the tourism sector, but also in other sectors in this country where private sector participation has led to very good success stories. Like when we talk about MWSC, like when we talk about Dirago, like when we talk about Uridu and other companies, we have seen that in these companies, we see that they follow the corporate governance code, the board members are held accountable, and it makes it easier. So I think that private sector active participation is very important. The problem lies in the fact that focus of the public sector and the private sector is very different. For the private sector, it becomes, the focus is more of profit maximization. For the public sector, it is mostly for welfare maximization, I think. So I think it is up to the government to solve the issues, to connect this void between profit maximization and also welfare maximization by the public. So one area where governments can actually help private sector participation is, I think one area why it is not successful is that we don't have models, proper models where we deal with the revenue subsidies, we deal with the tax breaks. Whatever the incentives given to the private sector is not really explained in a policy paper or something. It is only discretionary decisions are made. So I think one way where we can make sure that private-public partnership engagement is successful is by making it more as a policy paper written, or bring about legal framework where it is we write the rules of the game. Obviously, the government can't do everything by itself, and we don't want to do that. Our manifesto, one of the manifesto pledges is that you can see that in Maldives there are many state-owned enterprises, and in many cases the corruption that took place in the previous governments is through these state-owned enterprises. So one of our manifesto pledges is to reduce government's active involvement in businesses where the private sector can actually do a better job than the government. So we are working in ways where we can, we are working to reduce state-owned enterprises' involvement in businesses where private sector can do a better job. So we are focused on that. In short, in order to reduce the problems we face with private sector participation, I think there should be a legal framework which defines the rules of the game, and also a proper dispute resolution mechanism. I think we as a new government, we will actively pursue private sector participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, Mr. Ibrahim Hamir. Now, my next question I would like to pose to the Policy Secretary, Excellency Amna Shauna. How far does private sector engagement feature in the government's policy agenda? And in your opinion, what are some of the key potential sectors where this could be potentially pursued?
Thank you, Ambassador, honorable ministers and distinguished delegates. We came into government with a promise to deliver, and with a promise to deliver the pledges that we made during the campaign. And we have a policy agenda, we have a manifesto, and we promised to deliver a just country, and we promised that we would ensure equitable development for the entire country. And development that's sustainable, and the reality is that we can sustain everything that we have promised, and public confidence in democracy depends on our ability to deliver. And we really understand how important it is for us to fulfill the promises that we made. As our ministers and in the presentation that was highlighted, we really are looking for partnerships to do what we have planned to do in the next couple of years. Especially, we have promised to establish water and sewerage services in all islands in the entire country within the first 3 years of our government. And looking into issues that often come up from the public, things like energy prices, and even just last couple of weeks, one of the main issues that's been highlighted and a public outcry is because of increase in electricity bills. We understand the answer to this is not increasing electricity subsidies, but investing in renewable energy. In this regard, we do need your knowledge, we do need your support, and to establish a proper system that we can deliver renewable energy sources as well. Things like environmental protection that is featured constantly in our manifesto. Again, it's not just declaring protected sites, but it's also understanding how to manage these sites and how we can properly manage these sites in a way that can be sustained. In this regard, again, we need support, we need your knowledge to understand how we can best deliver our promises. One of the things that we often hear is that the Maldives is very small and there may not be economies of scale, but I think from a place where we stand, from a place where I see, where we constantly meet with local islands and island councillors, is that Maldives is actually achievable, and Maldives is small, yes, but it's also beautiful. And small is beautiful, and small is viable, and small is achievable. And I think one of the things that we've been working with, I'd like to invite Pale Maldives to make a comment, actually, because I see Shahina sitting here with us to explain what they are doing currently with government institutions and WEMCO to reduce, again, address the issue of waste and plastic waste, especially in the Maldives.
Thank you, Excellency. Before I open the floor to a question, please, let's hear from Shaheen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, Pale for the Oceans is a global organization working with the philosophy behind the whole organization is that it is more lucrative to protect the oceans than destroy them. So we actually work at different levels by bringing creators, artists, governments, brands onto our table to parlay for the oceans. And basically that is achieving a lot of momentum by bigger producers of, I'm still not going to, I'm going to go on a global scale where we say we change the way we do business. For example, Adidas is one of our key partners where they have promised to change their production line to only use recyclable plastic, even if the value is so much higher than virgin plastic by year 2023 in all their production. Pale says that it's a design failure. So we go to companies, American Express, big brands join hands to get on this and own this concept. The issue with Maldives is that a lot of these partnerships with waste and the country policy is that we make the mistake of, how would I say, the volume of waste created and link it to a business model. There's never going to be a business profit in waste recycling unless it is produced in the Maldives. But the setup is so expensive that we don't get the volume. And to get the volume, we need to transport internally over the ocean all the waste to one area. And we need to, I think, rechange the way we think this. But there are huge changes, and the business community and the partnerships and the funders need to change their mentality to kind of innovate themselves out of this mess, kind of a plastic in this, that when they're funding, hold them responsible and accountable for the business they do, that it is sustainable, and it is, it is a place where our future generations can enjoy what we are enjoying and reap the benefits of business, and it continues in a cycle. The biggest challenge we face is that we have policies that are very short-sighted. When the funding comes with an attached concept, or that you have to, it's either waste or renewable energy, but what happens is that it is not thought of in the local concept, and matching the partners and working with local private sector and getting their feedback into and working in with the local policy that is now coming with the new policies should be incorporated in forming a private partnership. The oceans, we talk about climate change. Maldives has always been an environmentally vocal country from the very beginning. Climate change is not going to stop unless we stop the way we do business. So these partnerships have to include, must include the environment concepts in their funding, in their partnerships, and in their with Maldives, we are working with the education sector to change behavior, and we are working with the fisheries sector to change the amount of plastic that goes into the ocean. We are taking plastic, it's just one item. Just plastic water bottles. If you look at one tuna fishing boat, yellow line tuna fishing boat, takes 15 to 20 cases of water, 1.5 liter cases on the ocean. If they go out 40 weeks in a year, with 14 cases, they actually dump 7,200 bottles into the ocean, just 1.5 liter bottles. If multiply that by 400 handheld boats, it's 8.8, over 8 million bottles in the ocean, just from these 400 boats. So we don't have an infrastructure where we can drop off plastic, where we can collect the plastic. Mechanisms need to be put into place. So partnerships can come in terms of water, clean water on vessels, marine vessels, finding plastic bag replacement. So, I mean, these are just individual items, which is very small. But the bigger picture of protecting the oceans to survive, I think, should be a very, very big priority for us. And the government policy is aligning, and we are working heavily with the education sector, fisheries sector, and the government in actually aligning private sector businesses as well in making the business the right business for the environment. Thank you. If you have any questions further, I can actually go into detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hein. Excellencies, your questions, comments, please. International Finance International Finance Corporation, yeah, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. And first of all, let me congratulate the Maldivian government on a very successful forum. Having attended the first forum 9 years ago and how structured it is this time, I see the difference, and the diversified attendance also shows the confidence that's placed in the government as well. I represent the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank Group. We have been in the Maldives from 1983. We have invested almost $150 million in the country over the years, and most of it is in pioneering investments as well. We have been in telecom, tourism, financial markets as well. However, in the last 5-6 years, we have been pretty silent also in the Maldives, leaving only one investment that's ongoing right now. We also have worked on the advisory side. I should say that especially in establishing the Credit Information Bureau of the Maldives some time ago. So our re-engagement strategy in the Maldives would be looking at key development gaps, like the inclusiveness is one and infrastructure is the other. We are a sector agnostic investor, so we would probably invest in a large area of sectors that probably could be kind of considered developmental in the Maldives as well. So we have already made some strides in terms of how we want to engage. We carried out a private sector scoping study, which is already available for us. Through that, we have identified logistics and transport as one of the main things that we want to invest. We have already made 2 client calls, which are gone through a concept approval stage, and we are looking at doing the due diligence soon. All of these investments that we would do in the Maldives would be kind of underlying principles would be sustainability and gender. So we would make sure that we will sensitize those 2 subjects and also make it innovative as well. So for example, in the logistics space, what we are doing right now, we are trying to use a mobile logistics network which would kind of connect the islands through cold and dry storage through an app which would act like an Uber. So you could use smaller boats, bigger boats, and also station warehouses on the shore as well. So we are looking at such investments as well. So we are working closely with the World Bank also to address the housing gap in the Maldives. So we're looking at how we can engage the private sector to come into the middle-income housing space also. And on the tourism side, we have been having quite a few discussions as well on the distress assets of the tourism sector, and also would like to know, as a question, where do we stand now in terms of identifying these properties, and whether we could kind of share information could be shared around that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I also have a question for you. I would like to know why during the last 5 years there was a disengagement. To answer your question on the distressed assets, we are now ready to share the information with you. we have set up the special vehicle company for that owned by the government, and we have identified the island. So we have not yet approached the current owners, but we will do so once we have certain level of committed funds and investors. But we'll be able to share with you those information now.
Question of why we have been silent. The way that we invest in a company could be through an equity or a debt. So debt instruments get paid off over a period of time, and we did not find sometimes the investment climate conducive for us to come in or the private sector to come in. I would put it that way.
Thank you, Excellency. Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. First of all, I would like to congratulate the government of Maldives for successfully hosting Maldives Partnership Forum 2019. This forum allowed us to understand better Maldivian government's aspiration and its hope to continue Maldives' sustainable development that would benefit all people in Maldives. The task ahead is indeed a great challenge, but with a strategic and coherent approach, I believe the Maldivian government would be able to meet all challenges ahead. Malaysia has been a close and partner with bilateral relations with Maldives for more than 50 years, and we would do our best to render necessary support to Maldives in ensuring its success. I also like to touch a little bit on waste, especially in terms of waste recycling. Recently, Malaysia has been, unfortunately, in the forefront of the waste recycling front page, because we've been receiving unwanted plastics from all over the world. And this has caused a lot of anxiety among our people, because this unwanted plastics and also other waste ended up somehow in our pots. And we are now trying to sort them out. And so that's why just now when I hear that Maldivian government has a plan to do recycle and paying very close attention to the waste, this is, I think, the right approach, and all countries should adopt, especially in this day and age. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Ambassador. Thank you very much. UNICEF.
Thank you very much. While I fully understand the focus on attracting the international profit-making organizations to the Maldives to work in the different sectors, I have observed that there is almost absence of the non-profit organizations like the international NGOs, and there are so many international NGOs that work in the environment and they work in the social sector, which I believe could help and assist the national non-governmental organizations in the Maldives dealing with a number of issues in the environment and in the social sector. Is there any specific position of the government with regard to partnering with non-governmental organizations from the international community? Thank you.
With regards to international organizations and especially NGOs, we have a very open policy on this now. I think past couple of years there were a lot of restrictions on how these, especially NGOs, can operate, and we no longer want to continue those policies, and we have completely taken a 180-degree turn on those backward policies, if I may say. So we welcome international NGOs, we welcome international organizations to help us deliver what we have promised.
Excellencies, further questions? Lunch is very near, but if there is no other question, I think, yes. I think you're moving towards a microphone. That's good. Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to just give a comment on this because we are SFM, and I think, I mean, the organizations, the governments, and I mean, entrepreneur-related organizations should know about us. We are SFM, and we are SME and Entrepreneurs Federation of Maldives. I mean, we were registered in December, and we are working towards building an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Maldives where we can accelerate, also we can connect with the other organizations around the globe. So I would just like to, I mean, say that we are also here to engage with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If there is, I don't see any questions, so we'll try to sum it up. As we heard from the panel, heart is willing, body is willing, we need more energy. And we heard from the panel that there are a lot of avenues that private sector can partner with the government and deliver the pledges of the government. What I think we can take on from the previous discussions also, government does not want everybody to come to an area. Government wish the people to stay where they are and give them a reasonable living. So I would like to, before I conclude, I would like to thank Excellencies for the comments and questions and the panelists for very insightful remarks. I wish you a good lunch and next sessions in the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Mausum, for moderating the session. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, everyone. We will now take a break for lunch, and we will commence our concluding session at 2:30 p.m. I would like to request all participants to be seated by 2:20 p.m. And again, I would like to remind everybody that the reception hosted by the Tourism Minister, His Excellency Ali Wahid, will be held at Paradise Island Resort and Spa at 8:30 p.m. tonight. Thank you.